Hey everyone, it's Curt with Smirk Dagger Games. Happy Halloween! This is one of my favorite times of years, not just because I love Halloween so much, but also Halloween is special for me for another reason, and that's because this is the anniversary of our company. I mark the day, Halloween Day in 2003, when Hex, our very first game, arrived at the warehouse. That was the beginning of our company. Now, last week I had mentioned what the first Hex actually looked like, and I thought it would be fun to kind of show you where Hex has been. Now, obviously, Hex XL is what's currently on the shelves, but if you look back, kind of we sweep back in time, there was also this Hex. In fact, this one is a German version when they printed that. Hex Next was our first expansion to the game, and a lot of that content got worked right into XL as well. But this is it. 14 years ago, this was Hex, and that's what showed up at the warehouse and launched Smirk Dagger. But before I could get there, I had to actually make sure that I really thought that we could sell the game. So for a long time, I was actually working with a laminated copy of the game. And this was before, quite honestly, there was Game Crafter, or there were even card sleeves. So what I did was I just made color copies, color printouts, and laminated them so that we could, actually play the game. And they looked pretty good, I have to say. But I really wasn't sure still whether I had a viable game that we could sell. So, way back when, now this is 15 years ago, when the Wizard Tower, a retailer up in New Hampshire, invited me to Gen Con to create a stir in their booth and some interest and maybe sell some of my upcoming game before it was even printed. Well, I didn't know how to go about that. So I did whatever I could to make a pseudo print of the game. And that's what I was talking about earlier this week. This is the first saleable copy of Hex. Let me show you what's inside. It's in a plastic case, just like you'd carry magic cards in. Then this is just a color copy as a little cover graphic. There's a folded rule sheet, black and white. And this was the deck back in the day. So, as you can see, these were all just printed black and white Xeroxes on parchment paper. And you can even see, like, some of the ink has flaked away just a little bit on some of these symbols. But this was the game that I ended up selling at the show. All hand cut, all hand assembled. Really nice parchment looking paper, but just Xeroxes. And here even, this is one of the original voice cards and had to work the same way. In fact, this is kind of funny. The original Hex tokens you had to cut out yourself. And on the back, it showed you that you could glue a penny onto the back, fold it over, and then cut it out so it would have the proper weight as a token. Well, this is how the original game went. And it's just amazing to take a look back and see, the quality of the game and the fact that this handmade game, which was, again, it was Xeroxed, it was just hand cut and assembled into each box. And we put $12 as a price tag on the game. Not sure if it would even sell. And I made 100 copies. And that first year, with little more than a square card table and a sign about the size of this box that just said, "Come and play our game Hex," my friend Justin and I sold 72 copies of that game. No banner, no one knew we were there, and if you know Gen Con, wow, this is the Gen Con's first year in Indianapolis when we tried this. There was a lot of excitement, there were a lot of booths, and we were one card table, someone who no one even knew about. And that's when I decided, if I could sell 72, maybe I've really got something here. Of course, there was no Kickstarter back then, So that meant putting my house on second mortgage in order to print this first game. I do not recommend it. Don't try it nowadays. Do the Kickstarter, much more logical. When XL came out, we did an expansion within the box for both Vexed and Hexensticks, which would allow some additional fun ways to play. Vexed provided a whole bunch of great laws, just like winning the original game, that you could now play turn after turn. Where Hexensticks added a whole flinch mechanic where whoever didn't get a stick was going to have something bad happen to them. But this was not the only thing we considered. We also had this. This was a mechanic where you could essentially wager on who was going to get hexed. So a player seated one spot to the left, 2 spots to the left, or 3 spots directly across from you. And you'd simply put the bead on your selection, and if a hex goes off on your target, you gain 2 voice. Not an expansion that we actually stuck with, but it was one of the ones in consideration. And it had a little shield around it so no one could see your bet at the time. I just thought you'd have fun taking a look at the original Hex, and hope you have a great Halloween. So long.